Welcome to the POMcast with Steve Willis, your independent, unbiased, and unbought source for Ole Miss athletics. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is October 29th, 2020, Vanderbilt week. Ole Miss versus Vanderbilt in Nashville, October 31st, Halloween on the SEC Network at 3 o'clock. We're going to look at that. We're going to hit weather for the game. I hope everybody is safe after the hurricane came through yesterday. I hope this is trending in the right direction. Now, today I want to talk about, really some more about the quarterback position and what we're going to look at. What we're looking at going forward, what other teams are going to do to us, and which teams are best suited to do that to us. So stick around for that. Of course, you can like us on Twitter or follow us on Twitter at the Stephen Willis or at Ole Positively. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast or join our Facebook group at Positively Ole Miss. You can hit us up on YouTube, hit the bell for notifications, Positively Ole Miss, or you can catch us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, all one word. It's pretty cool. That's going to come in handy for you when we switch over. We're planning right now about May. We're going to do this weekdays until May, so we're about 6 months out. But what we want to do is get me moved into my palatial Central Florida studios, and also get to enjoy it. And then I have an obsessive personality, so I can kick off in April and get ready and build that. And whenever we go live, I want it to look as close as broadcast quality as possible. We've already done our wireframe. It should come out pretty well. Part of my resume, for those who don't know, we've almost doubled our audience in the last couple of weeks, is television. I worked in Nashville. So a lot of the stuff I did for them, I'm also able to do here. Graphics has always been a passion of mine. So I'm looking forward to pulling that into position and giving you something that is useful. So, but that's what we're looking at, is how to make that useful. If radio is your bag, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. Subscribe. It'll download to your phone and be ready when you are. You don't even have to search for the show. Leave a review, 5 stars. Doesn't matter what you say. Call me a twit if you want to. Disagree with my opinions if you want to. It just doesn't matter. And that kind of sets up what we're going to do. The idea is, and I'm just going to tell you about my show because there's more to it than that. But that and Around the SEC, which will be available at 2 o'clock today, by the way. Corey Burton and Jeb Beecham joining me on that one. We're breaking down all the weekend SEC games, as well as going back. This week's episode, we lead off with Auburn's Lucky Horseshoe, because they have to have one, because 60% of the games this year have been given to them by referees. It's the most ridiculous thing I've seen. But Around the SEC, 2 o'clock. This one, of course, goes live at 10 o'clock. It'll be on all of our platforms. And I want you to subscribe to whichever one you want. Our whole shtick is we are where you are already. We're never going to ask you to go to a second location, and we're never going to ask you to we're never going to extort money from you. That's kind of our thing. And once we start going in May, because right now it just doesn't matter. Like I said, this is more practice for me. I want to cover Ole Miss and talk about Ole Miss because I enjoy doing it. But after my surgery, for those who don't know, I had multiple brain surgeries in 2019. I'm kind of getting back used to talking for long periods of time. And those who have followed the show from the beginning have noticed the improvement. You cannot not notice the improvement. My resume also is national media. I worked at Yahoo for about a decade. I had an office in the Manning Center. I was the video coordinator at Ole Miss. And I've worked in local television. I have a resume that's probably better than everyone that is doing this. And they won't admit it because it'll make them look bad, but that's just the truth. Now, once we go video only and grow, because that's when we're really going to grow. I'm going to leave my job and do this full time from the Central Florida Palatial Studios. I'm going to get somebody, an intern in Oxford that is willing to go to practices and hop on the telephone, so he'll be able to be a guest. I'm working with the school right now to procure video rights, and it's a long process and it's going to take a while, but it's going to be worth it because nobody has done something like this before. This is completely uncharted territories. It's going to be fantastic. And Ole Miss gets it just out of dumb luck because I'm an Ole Miss fan and I want to do Ole Miss, but I have the time to do this right. I have the wherewithal to do this right. We're almost there. It's going to be really cool. It's going to be great. So, this is the POMcast. I'm Steve Willis. Once we come back to the second segment, we're going to get into Vanderbilt a little bit. They average 254 yards a game offensively. That is even less than Arkansas, I believe. And that's a problem. POMcast, Stephen Willis. Stick around.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
All right, POMcast, Stephen Willis, thanks for joining us today, this wet Thursday in Middle Tennessee. Thank you so much for joining. Ole Miss is currently favored by 15.5 points, a little over 2 touchdowns. The over-under at 64 right now. And Team Rankings is projecting a 38-24 win, and Numbers Fire is projecting a 42-22 win for the Rebs. It just went up to 16.5, by the way, consensus-wise. And you look at the numbers of this. Ole Miss is averaging 35 points a game. Vanderbilt is averaging 8. Points allowed per game, Ole Miss is giving up 44, but there's Vanderbilt is giving up 33. Total yards, Ole Miss 521, Vanderbilt 256. Passing, which has been a problem. This is kind of a fool's gold number. Ole Miss is at 300 yards a game. Vanderbilt is at 145 yards rushing. Ole Miss is at 220. Vanderbilt is at 111. If you're talking about defensive stuff, you have Ole Miss giving up 556 a game, Vandy 451, giving up nearly 300 yards a game at 299. Vandy is giving up 240, and Ole Miss is giving up 256 on the ground, and Vandy 211. Vandy has 2 new coordinators. And Ted Roof is the defensive coordinator. I'm going blank on the offensive coordinator. They have a true freshman quarterback, and they're just not a very good team. Now, Ole Miss isn't a very good team at the moment either, because their margin of error is much, much smaller. And whenever you see that, understand that margin of error is shrunk, it'll kind of put things in perspective. Now, Ole Miss should win this game by a couple of touchdowns. Vandy always plays Ole Miss tough, but they haven't played in 3 weeks because of COVID. So nobody really knows what to expect. Now, I expect Vanderbilt to slow the tempo way down. Way down. I'm talking Princeton basketball, slow down the tempo. Get in the 4 corners and pass it around, slow the tempo. Play the drop 8 defense and allow Ole Miss to run the ball. With Matt Corral at quarterback, and so I'm expecting somewhat of a big day from Jerry and Ely and Snoop Connor. As we've talked a little bit last week, we mentioned that Ole Miss has a developing quarterback problem. As of right now, if you take the totality, he's thrown for 1,400 yards, 12 TDs, and 9 interceptions. We've played 5 games. That's a little more than an average of 2 per game. That's worrisome. Even more worrisome are the interceptions in the tight red zone. 3 times inside the 5-yard line, Ole Miss has turned the ball over. That's a problem. It also limits what you can do offensively. Now, physical tools, Matt Corral has all of them in spades. Nobody has ever doubted that. All the physical tools you could ever want, minus maybe being 2 inches taller. But the concern with Matt Corral was mentally. And we saw this a little bit against Arkansas, to where he'd throw in a pick and he'd come back in the next pass, he'd try and throw 2 touchdown passes. And he would force it into a situation. And he kind of leans too much on Elijah Moore. The same type, The same type reliance on Elijah Moore still exists. It's not a Rich Rod thing. That's what people need to realize. This reliance on one and the hurting in the passing game, it's not a Rich Rod thing. It seems to be a Matt Corral thing. Otherwise, you don't have somebody with 47 catches and the next person with 30 less. Now, some of that is scheming Elijah Moore open because he's the best wide receiver we have, but some of it is just locking onto him. And if you can lock onto him, you can read eyes, you can make interceptions. Ole Miss against Arkansas, getting the ball back with 3 minutes left with a chance to win. He locks on Elijah Moore, throws into pick six. The game is over. I mean, that happened. And then Auburn played the same thing, and he did a better job of checking down, but it just means he completed 3 yards per completion. It is getting to the point where trust is going to become an issue. It did last week, as you saw with John Rice Plumlee playing in the game. And everybody that sees the physical attributes only of Matt Corral are questioning putting John Rice Plumlee in the game. But if you look at it, the same thing is happening to the offense that happened last year. Just because we're playing less games and just because it's conference only doesn't really hide it. It's the same thing is happening. Now, there's no injury for it just to rip the Band-Aid off. And I am not saying John Rice Plumlee is going to be the quarterback come LSU. That's not what I'm saying. Matt Corral still has time to turn this around. He still has time to be the guy we saw in the first 3 weeks. His ceiling is unbelievably high. But right now, his floor is unbelievably low. We have to do more to raise that floor than to raise that ceiling, if that makes sense. We have to understand that when it comes to a quarterback, he has to be in the right headspace all the time. And if he's not, he struggles with this guy. And he needs something good to happen to him early on to get that confidence. I mean, it is really something to see. The turnover on the first drive of the Arkansas game just broke him. All of a sudden, he started pressing. Quicksand happened, as Shane Falco would say, and he started going down. Against Auburn, there was no real confidence either. Now, we ran them out of that cover 8 defense, but the damage had already been done. He now is seeing ghosts. And I'm not even talking about rushing the passer. I'm talking about in the secondary, to where Auburn, whenever they're covering with 7, to him looks like 9. So we have to come out against Vanderbilt. This is the ultimate and probably only get-right game on the schedule. And we have to come out with him and give him a chance by providing confidence-building throws early. Once he gets that, he can go. He can move. He's all right. He's snapped out of it. But until we do that, until he has confidence, until he snaps out of this, he's going to continue this level of malaise. And let's hope, beyond hope, that while this is happening, he doesn't drop down lower and it gets worse. That's the problem. After the interception, you saw JRP. There's a trust problem now with the coaching staff and Matt Corral. That's absolutely the case. They're not going to do it or say anything about it because they don't want to create a quarterback controversy when they haven't really seen the full package of the other guy. It's why I talk about Ole Miss having a quarterback problem, not a quarterback controversy. If that makes sense at all. A quarterback problem, not a quarterback controversy. Now, Vanderbilt, going back in their last 5, they are 1-4. The last 5, Ole Miss is 1-4. Of course, Vanderbilt's goes back to last season and a win over East Tennessee State because they've been off for 3 weeks because of COVID. And Ole Miss is going back to Florida. They haven't really won a game yet that they deserve to win. Even the Kentucky game came on a missed extra point. The Auburn game was right there. The officials blew it. That could have been a turnaround game. And if that touchdown is scored, then you're up by 8 with, 3 minutes to go or something. It changes the complexion. It changes how you play. When Auburn scored that last touchdown to go up 35-28, they were trying to prevent them from getting into field goal range and gaining an extra 5 yards. That's why that mistake happened. And that's why that big play happened. So, that's a 30,000-foot view of Vanderbilt and the quarterback situation at Ole Miss, because I'm going to harp on this over and over and over again because it matters. Remember, this season, celebrate the positive, ignore the negatives. COVID has made it that way. Anyway, this is the POMcast. I'm Stephen Willis. Stick around.
You want to answer that, don't you? I bet it's just killing you seeing the soft glow just inches away. Someone wants to tell you something or ask you something. Oh, come on, answer it already! Just so we're clear, that wasn't my fault. Next time, ignore your inner voice. Don't text and drive. A message from Florida's trusted choice independent insurance agents.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis. I just want you to stick around a little longer. We're going to get back to the podcast right after these messages.
Tonight, nearly 40,000 veterans across the country are homeless. These men and women have pledged to serve our nation, and now we must serve them. Landlords across the country have helped make significant progress in reducing veteran homelessness by making housing available, but there is more that we can do to bring our veterans home. Visit www.va.gov/homeless to see how you can get involved. And if you are a veteran and you are experiencing homelessness, please call 877-4AID-VET. Thank you.
All right, POMcast, last segment of the day. Thank you for sticking around and enjoying it. Around the SEC is today at 2 o'clock. You can learn all about Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Auburn, Mississippi State, Alabama, Arkansas A&M, and Mizzou and Florida. Now, I am going to tell you that basically Elijah Drinkwitz has something cooking at Missouri right now. And it's not like Ole Miss. If you look at Ole Miss's tempo is always trying to be dictated to the opponent. They want you to play at our tempo to do it. Well, he's doing things a little bit different. He's done a high tempo game in his victory over LSU. And then he did an extremely low tempo game against Kentucky where they allowed Kentucky to only have 36 snaps of the ball. That's 18 per half, 9 per quarter. That's crazy to be able to slow it down that much. They had an 11-minute drive. 11-minute drive. It's absolutely amazing. And it's a version of the spread that's a little bit of Gus Malzahn, but with a little more passing threat. It kind of looks like Rhett Lashley a little bit, but there's the Gus Malzahn influence on it. So it's really worth watching. And Florida's uniforms this week, blue helmets, blue jerseys, white pants, are going to be just straight fire. check those out as well, as those are fantastic. We also talked about us not really being able to get a read on the LSU Auburn game, and Auburn's lucky horseshoe and the mess that at LSU with players entering the portal seemingly every week. We talked a little bit about Georgia and the quarterback controversy that JT Daniels is not quite ready to go. We talked about Arkansas and A&M. That's our upset game of the week, potentially. I like Arkansas. I love the offensive system that Ole Miss runs, so obviously I like the offensive system that Arkansas runs. And Kellen Mond is going to throw a couple to the other team in this system. Isaiah Spiller is the key. He could have a big day that kind of makes this irrelevant, but I really like Arkansas. Mississippi State at Alabama. Mississippi State is a 31-point underdog, and in a game like this, you should just take Alabama to cover. Kylan Hill opted out to get ready for the NFL draft. This was all predicted several months ago, being in this system, and along with 3 other players. So there's a purge happening. It's not going well. But Mississippi State fans, I want you to realize that the system changed between what you ran under Joe Moorhead and Dan Mullen and what Mike Leach is doing requires different type players. Remember what I say, every player is a system player. So you're going to have good players, but it's going to look worse. Give him time to get his guys in there, 3-4 years. And then he'll be able to go just like he's able to go wherever he has been. But you have to have the patience to get there. Jalen Waddle injury out for the year, so that'll help them a little bit, but I mean, not much. And I think that is all. Ole Miss and Vanderbilt is the other game. Ole Miss favored by 16.5. So talking about AccuWeather, there's not really any rain in the forecast. Couple of clouds of games, couple of sunny games to happen. All games in the, Florida and Missouri is 80. Arkansas and A&M is 72. Mississippi State and Alabama is 70. LSU and Auburn is 66. Kentucky and Georgia and Lexington, Kentucky is 59. And Ole Miss and Vandy is 65 degrees. So we have a chance to have a nice little Saturday. Enjoy it. This is going to be something we can pay attention to and really just have fun. Although most of the lines are in double figures, the only single-digit line is the LSU-Auburn game, the CBS game. Ole Miss and Vanderbilt at 3 on the SEC Network. Kentucky and Georgia at 11 on the SEC Network. Alabama and Mississippi State at 6 p.m. on ESPN for that public execution. Arkansas at Texas A&M at 6:30 on the SEC Network, and Florida and Missouri at 6:30 on the SEC Network alternate channel. So it's going to be a fun day. It's going to be, honestly, a low-pressure day. You can enjoy it. You can get out in good weather. It's going to be a lot of fun. So enjoy those SEC games and see all the benefits that are in your future. Yeah. I tried to do a motivational speaking thing there, and it didn't quite work. So I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But I've gone over the quarterback, and I've gone over Vandy, and I just briefly went over the SEC. Around the SEC at 2 o'clock today, that going over all the games much more in depth with Corey Burton and Jeb Beecham. That will be video as well when we switch over. Anyway, this has been the POMcast. I'm Stephen Willis. Thanks for listening. I will see you tomorrow.